Warbirds Museum. Whoa, we got some World War II porn here.
And if you don't stop that, you could go blind.
For today's adventure, I headed down to Kissimmee, Florida to visit the Warbirds Museum and Flight Center. Now, I've been to a lot of aviation museums over the years, and this is one of the more modestly sized ones. I feel like if you're going to enjoy yourself at this particular museum, you really should have a reasonable expectation of what you're going to get. There are much larger air museums out there. I've been to the Air Force Museum in Warner Robins, Georgia, as well as Fantasy of Flight here in Florida, and those are much larger facilities. This particular museum is confined to a single hangar, and you really need to know that, I think, before you come out to visit. Now, having said that, I still really did enjoy the eclectic collection of airplanes they have. They have a lot of older aircraft. I'm a fan of the prop planes myself. Their collection isn't as large as Fantasy of Flight. However, they specialize in charter flights and vintage airplanes, so that's mostly how they differentiate themselves from other museums. Another thing I noticed is Fantasy of Flight has a really erratic schedule when it comes to when they're open to the public. This Warbirds Museum, you can pretty much count on them to be open year-round, so that's one of the nice things, that if you're in the area and Fantasy of Flight turns out to be closed, this Warbirds Museum is most likely still open. That's actually how I ended up here for the initial visit. I originally had planned on going to Fantasy of Flight, but Fantasy of Flight was closed for the entire month of October and wouldn't reopen until mid-November. But I was traveling to the area, in October, so this is where I ended up. And I'm really happy that I discovered this place. I wouldn't have looked for it if Fantasy of Flight had been open, but I really feel like this place is a hidden gem of Kissimmee. They've got a great staff. If you want to talk about vintage airplanes, you couldn't find better people to do it with. So it's just a great little attraction here. It's also really affordable compared to a lot of the other attractions located in Central Florida. So the highlight of this museum for me is being able to see a Curtiss P-40 Warhawk up close. It is one of my favorite aircraft from World War II. A big fan of fighter planes, and this one is meticulously maintained and one of the nicest ones that I've seen in person. I also know that this one is flight worthy because they were prepping it to go for a flight later that day. It's pretty neat that most of the aircraft in this museum aren't just static displays, but most of them are airworthy. So what's the bottom line on the Warbirds Museum? Well, I think it's pretty clear from looking around that this is not a full-day attraction, but if you're already in Kissimmee to visit Walt Disney World and looking to burn a couple hours, this is a pretty good place to do it. And if you really can afford to do it, the flights and the vintage aircraft really make the experience memorable. Thanks for watching this episode of The Adventure Shmup. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to like and subscribe. See everyone next week.